Episode of the Attention Economy. Today we have Jahnavi, president and founder of New Voters, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that has facilitated hundreds of voter registration drives nationwide. So hi Jahnavi, it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Nidhi. And you are one of those over 1,000 registration drives that we've led. So it's very exciting to be here, especially with you.
Yeah, and honestly, that was an experience I really enjoyed. And honestly, the voter registration drive kind of reminded me that I think many people think of civic engagement as starting strictly at the ballot box. But what would be another way that you would define meaningful civic participation, especially for young people who may not be eligible to vote, like especially high school students?
Absolutely. So sorry, Nidhi. You froze on my screen for a little bit, but if you can hear me fine,
Yeah, I
then
can hear
we're
you.
chilling. Okay, great.
So, okay, what I said was that many people think of civic engagement as starting like strictly at the ballot box. So, what would be another way you could define meaningful civic participation, especially for young people under the age of 18 who might not be eligible to vote yet?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you candidly exemplify this incredibly well in your own work, and you should definitely I would love to hear from you, like what you think, like the most meaningful way that people under 18 can engage. But for me, I was 16 when the 2016 election happened, and obviously under 18 and too young to vote. And there really wasn't any clear path or opportunity to get involved. As far as I could tell, there was a lot of let's learn about things. I was very lucky in my school. We talked about it, but there wasn't really an understanding or the opportunity to, in a way that felt meaningful and not just like placating, right? Like you're told, like, oh, you can sign a petition, oh, you can post this on your Instagram, but like they don't feel real because it's not something that you like actually experience power doing. Um, so for me, it really comes down to that first experience I had. Like I said, I was 16 when the 2016 election happened, and I felt really helpless. I felt like decisions were being made that impacted me and my generation more than anybody else, and I didn't have a say. And I went into school and I talked to my friends who were walking around like zombies, honestly, the day after the election. And I'm from a super purple area. People definitely are not on the same page, and people who I thought would be happy with the results weren't. But the resounding opinion was that this was the most talked about event of our entire lives. And it felt like we had absolutely no say, which I'm sure you and your friends also felt like in 2024. And our young people will feel like as long as they're not able to vote and elections are being talked about, unless we figure out ways to ensure young people not only feel like they have power, but actually have power. And for me, that was in realizing that my senior class, even though I wasn't going to be old enough to vote until the end of my senior year, a bunch of people in my senior class would be. Actually, 90% of every single high school senior class is typically eligible to register to vote by the time that they graduate. So almost every single high school senior, including me at the end of my senior year of high school. So I ran a nonpartisan voter registration drive at my school in October 2017. And in 3 days, we registered 85% of our senior class to vote. And that for me was the first time that I ever experienced having power. I ever experienced seeing something tangibly happen because of something I did. And that's the thing is like people, young people included, but all people don't believe they have power by being told they have it. They believe they have power by experiencing it. And it can't be some like sham experience where, you get a participation award. Like, no, like it needs to be like somewhere where you really feel like you've impacted people's lives, and being able to have people support you in knowing that it's a success. I think that sometimes we measure success and impact in very like broad ways, and I know that we talked about this when we spent the week together at the summit. It also can be depth. It also can be literally one person's life has changed because of the work that you do. And that's why it's so important that when we're thinking about how do we give young people the opportunity to have civic power, to develop agency, and so on and so forth before they're old enough to vote, and even afterwards, it's important to not only give them the opportunity, it's important to set them up to succeed at that opportunity. And it's important to set them up to know what is success and that it's not just registering 500 kids to vote, right? It can be, I don't know, it can be like sitting with someone at lunch who was sitting alone. And it can be you the most impactful thing you could do before you were 18.
For sure. I think I sometimes civic participation, I think for people under 18, takes almost very unconventional forms, but meaningful ones nonetheless. And I think in times like this, and I'm pretty sure you would agree, I think it's very easy to feel disengaged just because the media sometimes feels like a constant stream of like distressing news that we have like no control over. And I think the impact is, I think, very profound on our generation, especially. And I think Gen Z specifically is often described as both the most like politically engaged because we have the power to like, research current events and things like that. And there are more things we can do in our communities. But we're also described as the most politically exhausted generation just because,
Mm.
yeah, of like unprecedented times. So why do you think these two things can coexist at the same time when they almost seem like opposite ends of the spectrum?
Yeah, and I mean, I know you know this really well through your work in your community organizing project and how this can can be transformed. People complain. I think Gen Z, I'm Gen Z. I'm elder Gen Z as opposed to your younger Gen Z. Um, but people have characterized Gen Z as complainers for as long as I have. People have been saying the word Gen Z. But the reality is, people complain when they don't think they can do anything about something, not when they are whatever descriptive people like to assign to Gen Z, not because they are like apathetic or complaining is actually, in fact, antithetical to apathy, right? Like if you didn't care, you wouldn't complain. Um, I mean, I think exhausted because we're reaching a inflection point in a lot of things that were promised to us, right? Like we were promised we would have Social Security. We were promised we would have Medicaid. We were promised that we would, I remember in high school, promise that you'd have a job, promise that like your college education would be worthwhile, promise that like the government does things that are in your best interest as a citizen and as someone who lives here. And I think that Gen Z's experience growing up, and especially younger Gen Z, has been characterized by governmental failure. It's been characterized by a mishandled COVID-19 epidemic. It's been characterized by having to wear clear backpacks to school and grow up doing school shooter drills that no other country really does except for our country. It's characterized by, even if you're not aware of it, growing and hiking in like health insurance premiums. And I wish all students would not be aware of that being the case, but I know from running our program that more young people than you would ever like to know are aware of how expensive their health insurance is and don't have it. Um, so exhaustion is not like falsely a true, like, it's a real exhaustion because of real conditions that young people are living through, right? Like you were born after an inconvenient truth came out. You were born after people said it's past the point of no return for climate change. Like you were born after Columbine. And I was like born like right before a year before 9/11, right? Like the idea that you shouldn't complain is crazy because there's a lot of stuff to complain about. But simultaneously, I would say Gen Z is also like the most hopeful generation. I would say certainly compared to millennials. Um, there's, I think that there's a lot of, I saw this at the summit. and I see it in the work that you do and the work that your peers do, and so on and so forth. Like they're the only way throughout history things have ever gotten better is because people cared enough to do something about it. And the reality is we need to mix, like saving the world is fun, you know, like saving the world is like a joyful community building experience. Getting to like liberation for all and all these wonderful things that we want, like that is fun to do. And it is exhausting, but you also make some of your best friends in doing it. And you get to like unless something that like you, I don't know. It's like you Gen Z have the tools to digitally and in person organize, and they have the knowledge to know about what's happening in the world. And I think that like young people do it remarkably on their own as well. And hopefully organizations like New Voters and your organization and so on and so forth can tell young people like there's actually something you can do about it. I think that that's the piece of the conversation that's missing in our education system and in our conversations with friends and social media is that like things suck. Yeah. And everything that's ever changed in the past has been because people cared enough to do something about it. And so if you decide to care, then things will change. Like that is literally the one thing.
Yeah, for sure. I almost think in some ways the exhaustion is because we do care. Because I think if we didn't care, we wouldn't be checking the headlines, we wouldn't be trying to fix things. Like, I think, especially a lot of my peers, and me included, we run nonprofits. Even like in our own communities, like even as far as those efforts will go, and nonprofit work specifically is so like exhausting at times just because results are usually like intangible, and it really takes, I think, a lot of internal motivation to keep going. But I like,
And a good network of people that you
for
can talk
sure,
to.
yeah, like I think networking is a huge part of it, but I've honestly loved the connections that I've made through nonprofit work. And I think another part of just like being civically engaged is obviously like a being online, but like I think today I call it like an age of echo chambers, which probably isn't that far off just because, social media has made it easier than ever to access political information, but it's also made like misinformation and polarization more common. And I just want to like get your perspective on like how has technology changed the way young people specifically participate in democracy?
Absolutely. I mean, I how technology has informed how young people engage in democracy.
Yeah.
So definitely for better and for worse. I think a lot of people like to focus on the for worse, but there's so many things that are so much better. Like being able to know about current events by going on your Instagram story and having the trusted messenger of your friend posting about something. And I think that it can be increasingly more effective, like versus like reposting a graphic on your story. You see people like post like their thoughts in written form on their Instagram story. And then even more effective than that is posting like a video of them talking about it. And even more effective than that is posting a video of them doing something about it. Like that is something that like we had to wait, like not me personally, but like older generations had to wait for like the film like news stories to come up online and like the newspaper to read about or like hear about at like the community town hall, and here we are able to see this in with our own eyes in front of us, not to mention like digital organizing. Like I personally think that like in-person engagement is like the single most effective thing that you can do. But imagine like before we had like text or email, you had to like meet in person, and while you're meeting in person, set the next time to meet in person. And if people weren't there, you had no way of knowing if they were going to be available for the next thing. And it's like let's like and now we have when to meet and doodle poll and group chats and Slack and the ability to be like, here's a pin, come to this pin. I don't even know how before like people like went places. It's like, oh, walk like 30 feet next to this tree. Like, what do you mean? Like, so, but I think that like the ability to like organize people quickly without having to like physically go places is like you can organize a rapid response so much more effectively, right? Like if something happens, you just like show up somewhere and you have to hope that you'll be able to get in touch with the people that you need to get in touch with. Now you can just have a group chat and be like, hey, like every time something happens in our community that we want to respond to, put it in the group chat and we'll come. Um, Negatively, though, because I think for all of our tech savviness and on chronic onlineness, we're really susceptible to fake news in a very different way than like my grandma is with her like WhatsApp messages about cold water causing cancer. But like, and like, God bless her, like, but like, you know, it's like, it's a very different way. Like, I don't think as often Gen Z fall for like the very obviously like I'm a Nigerian prince, send me $1 million scam. But like certainly fall for deep fakes, certainly fall for videos of people speaking in a different language that are captioned with like different words than what they're actually saying. Like are convinced by like someone saying something really convincingly into the camera. Like the fact that like Candace Owens has like 3 to 5 million views on her videos about how Charlie Kirk telepathically communicates with her, right? Like that, you know, so I that being said, I was speaking with this person named Aubrey. She's the digital minister for Taiwan. And she told me throughout human history, people have looked at images and always had a healthy dose of skepticism about them because images were typically like before photographs, like what were images? Like, do you have like, there were paintings, right? And everyone knew that a painting could be fake, right? Like, it's what this person, like, if you look at a painting as painting. It can be as easily doctored as a painting is. So I don't think that like technology is inherently negative for young people's engagement. I think there's risks, as there are with everything, but I think with adequate education and you can absolutely overcome them.
For sure, and I think part of that is just because maybe we haven't been exposed to the risks long enough yet. Like I
Mm.
know, like on TikTok especially, like I think it was very recent that they had to reinstate or actually like make the requirement for to like flag AI generated content. Even on
Mm.
Spotify, like sometimes like on the Discover Weekly playlist where it's like it'll show you like new artists, it'll be like AI generated music and it won't flag it. So I think maybe these are things that will be like remedied with time. And I think maybe we just need a few more years. And but I think a lot of what they're doing right now is unfortunately it can I think damage public trust in institutions and people, like just because of the like sheer prevalence of deep fakes and like other fake AI generated like images or videos. And that's why I think that's part of the reason why I think in the last couple years, I think trust in institutions has declined among many young people specifically. And that definitely circles back to what you said before. And we live in an era of kind of unfulfilled governmental promises. So, what have you found to be the most effective way to build trust and encourage civic participation? Because it's not that we don't want to trust, is like I'm sure you know, it's just like we haven't had much of a reason to.
Yeah, I think that that is such a critical part of the conversation that people who talk about this miss. They're like, young people don't trust the government. And I'm like, why do you think that that's the case? Like, to act like the youth mistrust in institutions is something to address on its own is crazy because rightfully so, young people don't trust institutions that have failed them their whole lives. Um, and you can literally read a history book to see how the government has failed before our time as well. I mean, I think step zero is build institutions that are worth trusting. build institutions that people can trust. And I feel proud, and I hope you would agree that like New Voters is one of those institutions. Like, I want young people who participate in our programs to know that like our goal is not to like make a quick buck off of the students that we serve, or to charge you an arm and a leg to participate in our programs. No, our programs are free. And also, we like the outcome that we care about is not something to report to donors. The outcome we care about is young people caring and having the tools and skills to engage in democracy. And similarly, like, we need to, like, there is no like making young people trust institutions when those institutions aren't worth trusting, because that's just like, how do you run a misinformation campaign to make young people trust something that doesn't work? I think what you do is you do things that work, and then and you work with young people, you work with people who don't trust those institutions to say, like, what do you not trust about this? What are you skeptical about? And then you do the thing to address the thing that they're skeptical about. You stop doing the things that they don't trust, and then you report on it. You make it as public as possible. You have those people who initially engaged in your program, like, feedback, to go out and tell people what changes have been made. And if you're starting from scratch and you're making an institution or whatever, I think it's so important that the people that you want to trust and be served by your institution or organization are part of the creation of it and part of the development of it, and sustainably part of its like existence. Trust is not something that exists in a vacuum. It exists because a thing does the thing it's supposed to do. When it comes to me, I think that like engaging in the civic process, quite honestly, is about trusting your ability to make a difference. Trusting that like if you engage, something will happen. And if you engage in X or Y way, something will happen. It's like with the voter registration drives. There's some people who registered 5 kids to vote, and there's some people who registered over 500. And meaningfully engage with your administration and build a team and use your mentor and use your resources, you can register more than 100 kids to vote. Like, it is fully within your power to do that. And I think trust in a government can be built by trusting in yourself to fix that government, I guess, is the point. So for me, so much of trust in institutions comes down to how much do young people trust that if they engage, something will happen.
I think, yeah, I feel like oftentimes I don't even think, or at least maybe this is specific to my area, because I will say I do live in like a pretty red area. So I don't know whether this is specific to the political alignment of the area, but I will say sometimes it's like civic education in schools does not exactly specify what young people can do. Like, I didn't even know you could run a voter registration drive until I joined New Voters, which is so crazy to me because I joined like second semester my junior year of high school. So it's like I do wish we often had more access to just more comprehensive civic education in that aspect, which, as I know, like something a lot of people are working to remedy, I think including you. So it's like, if you could redesign civic education for today's students, what would you change to better prepare them to participate in democracy?
I think all civic education has to come with civic education, insofar as it doesn't increase civic engagement, is quite honestly, in my head, not very valuable. Obviously, there's value in learning about history, and that I think is separate. But like, if you're teaching civic education, like, it is a crime that young people don't know that their school boards are elected, right? Like, that is something that feels very reasonably should be taught in schools, but it's often not. Young people should know how to register to vote. They should know like what, um, even just like, is it a form? Is it online? How old do you have to be? Do you need, like, how do you bail an absentee if you're going away to college or going out of state for post high school? I also think when I talk about trust in institutions, one, I'm mostly talking about the federal government and these national institutions. Local government is a whole different thing. And like, you should trust your school board, you should trust your city council, you should trust your local sheriff. Like, and these are people who are very, very accessible, even like your state rep, your state senator, but even like your federal rep. Or like, these are people whose job is to serve you, and they live, like, your local electeds probably live no more than 15-minute drive away from your house. You know, they go to the same coffee shop as you, their kids go to the same school as you, maybe they went to the same school as you. Like, I would say, like, really know who is representing you and what they do. Like, people, like, is your sheriff elected or not? Do you have a comptroller for your area? What does a comptroller do? Are you governed by a city council or by committee or by a board of supervisors? What do those people do? How often do they meet? Where do they meet? And the crazy thing is, every single one of those meetings is typically open to the public. You are allowed to just go to any meeting that government officials have typically, and be like, I think that you should fill the pothole in front of my neighborhood. I think my high school should have Mandarin classes. And I would change civic education to register every single student to vote before they graduate from high school, and make sure they have the knowledge necessary to vote when it is time for them to vote, whether that is when they're still in high school or after they've graduated. And I would make sure that people have a robust knowledge of who their local elected officials are and what they do.
Yeah, I think I've heard the saying that like the further down the ballot you go, the more I would say like it impacts your life, just because like local officials are so far down the ballot and no one even knows that these people are even elected. Like I think even governor elections, my state is having its governor election this year in November. And people don't even know that like when you elect the governor, and it's truly not even their fault. Like when you elect the governor, you elect all like the officers under the governor too. And I kind of wish that like civic education taught history, yes, because I think it's valuable, and honestly, I love history. It was always my favorite subject, but also I just wish it taught more accessible things, you know, like how our local government works. How does that apply to you? How can you participate? I honestly wish that was either part of a history course or its own course that you would have to take like as a requirement. And, you know, maybe it'll get implemented because I know there are a lot of people working towards it. So when you think about the next decade, especially when we've seen more and more youth engagement in politics and civics in general, what gives you the most hope for the future of youth civic engagement?
Literally, like, you, like the work that you do specifically with your nonprofit, but also like you as in like the broader, like, this, you who were at the summit. For our listeners, we brought 100 high school, so New Voters helps high school students run nonpartisan voter registration drives in their schools, develop their leadership skills, and make a local community impact on an issue of their choice. And Nidhi was one of 125 high school fellows who were part of our New Voters 250 fellowship, and we brought them to DC for a 4-day, 3-night summit in June of 2026, right before the nation's 250th. And over those 4 days, getting to meet all of you, and the way that you care to not just do something but do it well, like caring so much about like what is that, what are the outcomes that happen when you engage in your community, how do you do it better? Like, we had, you know, as you know, 3 students present on their voter registration drives. A student registered 50 kids, a student registered 190, a student registered 500. And I remember how engaged you all were with, oh, what did you do if this happened? What did you do if this happened? And how that conversation continued throughout the summit of like, oh, I didn't even know we could use paper forms instead of virtual. Like, I'm going to use that now. Or, oh, I didn't even know that like I could, you know, make a spreadsheet of all the eligible students in my school and assign people to follow up with them. And it's less the like logistics of it, which I do tend to get in the weeds on, but more the desire to improve and the desire to not just be like, oh, this is another line for my resume that I've checked off, but rather like, I genuinely care about whether my senior class votes or not. I genuinely care whether my organizing projects distributes hygiene supplies to help 100 people in my community. So that's my hope. My hope is that, people care. People care a lot, and people, once given the opportunity and the permission to do something about it, will go so far. And if you couple that permission and opportunity with actual resources, then oh my gosh, you could register thousands of people to vote. There's no shortage of people who want to make this world a better place. Um, and it's a gift to be able to work on helping them realize that.
I totally agree, and it kind of just circles to what you said before. I think especially in times where cynicism is kind of the norm, care and optimism just kind of make all the difference in the world, and I think that's a great note to end on, honestly. The key is just to care about what you do, and I think try, and then results will follow.
Absolutely.
That was all I had for today. Thank you so much, Jahnavi.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. It was so incredible. And I hope that everybody is just so inspired by the work that you do and your efforts. And I know that you're like doing